Neil Gaiman's one of the best fantasy writers of all time. I've been a fan of his since reading his Future Shocks in 2000 AD, way back in the early 80s. And since then, he's produced memorable works like Stardust, Good Omens, Coraline, Neverwhere, and his magnum opus, Sandman, a 75-part comic series produced under the Vertigo imprint for DC Comics. He is, like the vast majority of people in the creative arts, sympathetic to the woke worldview. But he has, unlike many others, prevented that ideology from swamping or negatively influencing his creative output. Yet his inclinations have become apparent in a number of cases. When Neil was working on a TV adaptation of his American Gods novel, one of the execs asked if they could change one of the characters from black to white. Neil stormed out of the meeting and wrote a testy article on the encounter in the Broadside Press. But with the Sandman TV series, he's suddenly become enthusiastic for such swaps. Death has been cast with a black actress. The Librarian has done a race and gender swap. Lucifer has been replaced by a woman. Rose Walker has been replaced with a black actress, as has her grandmother, Unity Kincaid. And the cast photos all helpfully list the preferred pronouns of the actors. Now look, lots of people don't like this, and for perfectly legitimate reasons that have nothing to do with them being racist or sexist. We all understand that creators have political and social leanings that will influence their work. But this should be the subtext, a feature that doesn't swamp the story being told. When the politics is ladled on with such ham-fisted tokenism, it's incredibly distracting. It detracts from the story being told and diminishes the piece as a work of art. We become unable to get lost in the story, in the fantasy world being created, because we end up feeling like we've been lectured all the time, like someone's standing over us, reminding us not to be racist or sexist, like some prim and infuriating elderly aunt. And you know what? We already know racism and sexism are bad. We don't need to be constantly harangued and poked to be aware of the blindingly obvious. So there's nothing brave or revelatory about this style of storytelling. The creators aren't telling us something bold and original that we'd never thought of before. It's like when newsreaders put on their best mummy and daddy voices and warn us to drive carefully when there's a blizzard sweeping the country. Yeah, I know, mate. I'm not 5 years old. That sort of stuff's bad enough during the news. But it's even worse in our fiction, when we want to escape for a bit. And it's particularly annoying when the same message swamps virtually every other film, TV series, advert, and documentary we get rammed down our throats. We get it, okay? You're not been some sort of progressive Gandhi who's healing societal rifts with some kind of perspicacious insight we'd never have arrived at ourselves. And we're not knuckle-dragging racists and sexists. We've just had enough of your tedious posturing. Because really, it's all about the creators trying to flaunt their woke credentials. It's pure vanity. And it's just really, really boring. So, like I say, there are plenty of legitimate reasons for critiquing the hectoring casting choices for this TV series. I don't really mind when people make these kinds of identity-obsessed adaptations. I'd just like there to be some alternatives when they didn't. But I honestly can't even remember the last time that even happened. Now, Neil could have just left it there. But he didn't. Because he made the next cardinal sin committed by those who foist these woke remakes on us. He blamed the fans. And then he attacked the fans. Because that's the way to heal any potential rifts. Neil angrily tweeted that he gave zero fecks about what he called their whining, and dismissed his fans as having either not read or not understood the comic. Watch the show, he says, to make up your minds. Well, Neil, I have read the comic, and I even understood it. But I won't watch the show, because I already feel like someone's looming over my shoulder and wagging their finger at me before I even begin. That's not a great starting point. And this tweet really doesn't help. And neither did the tweet where he sniffily dismissed all the people who've complained as not fans. Well, Neil, we are fans. That's why we care. And I honestly expected a better response than this snarky, dismissive and contemptuous disdain. Now, I've made a few other films on this kind of racially motivated casting, on how it's always a one-way street. And the main defence of this approach revolves around how black people are unfairly represented in popular culture. And I'm sorry, but what? That might genuinely be the most astoundingly illogical argument I've ever heard in my life. It flies in the face of every bit of evidence we've had for virtually a century. Because reality shows us that the direct opposite is the case. Saying black people are unfairly represented in culture is a bit like saying they're unfairly represented in sprinting or boxing. The reverse is the case. And thank God. Because culture, and all of us, have been the stunning beneficiaries of that contribution. And that's because, like sprinting, boxing, and pretty much every facet of society, our culture has been predominantly shaped by merit, not tokenism. And when it's shaped by merit, it's all the better for it. In fact, the sort of tokenism on display right now only undermines that glorious legacy, and means that some modern black performers may not get the respect of those who came before them. That there may be a lingering suspicion that they're there not because of their creative brilliance, but just to fill a quota. And that would be a damn shame. Now, if you want to carry on pushing this agenda over the concerns of creative honesty, feel free. But we'll continue to regard it as a regressive step, because that's exactly what it is. When culture is shaped to fit a political or social ideal, then it is the death of art. Pure and simple. Now, Neil, I'm still a fan, and I'll still read everything you do. Because I don't hate people just because they have different ideas or values to me. There's probably a lesson there. Something about tolerance. And here's some other unsolicited advice. Maybe you should try to listen to your fans' concerns rather than just dismissing them. And maybe try to understand where they're coming from, rather than just being hostile and abusive. Unfortunately, that's the stock response from our oh-so-tolerant progressive left. Just arrogant disdain, sneering contempt, bigoted assumptions, and abuse, scorn and bile heaped on anyone with concerns about where all this is headed. If you'd like to support this channel, please like, subscribe, and think about buying my books. They're called The Tyranny of the Left, and they're available on the links below. They go into these sorts of topics in significantly greater detail. Please do feel free to pick them up and let me know what you think. Thank you.